Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Today we're talking NBA drafts with some of the home run swings, these high-risk, high-reward players that you see teams willing to take. Maybe their GM ends up losing their job because they whiff. Maybe they end up with the next superstar. Tate, is there a player who comes to mind first to you that is the big home run swing in this year's draft class?
Yeah, I feel like the Warriors are the kings of this, where they have like the ESPN top 100 list, like just printed up somewhere like a big board, and they see guys that have fallen, and they're like, how is this guy the number one player, but now he is not in our top 30 on the draft?
James Wiseman.
Right.
Like, granted, he goes the top pick, but he was number one in this class.
Of course. And a guy who was number one in his class by most assessments is Gigi Jackson, who decided to, bump up a year, enrolls at South Carolina. Everyone stays in state at South Carolina, decommitted from North Carolina. But the USA basketball conversation around Gigi last year was high. I mean, everybody was high on this kid. They're saying he's going to be one of the most important prospects in quite a while for USA basketball. He had a detrimental first year in college basketball. I mean, that's probably to put it lightly. I remember specifically the Brandon Miller game, right? It just felt like these are two tiers of players. But if you do believe in the physical frame, if you do believe that he is young and that you can develop him and put him in a good system, there's a world in which Gigi Jackson looks like the biggest home run of this draft, especially if you get him late, in the 20 range, 18, 19, 20 range. I think that could be a lot of upside for someone.
I mean, he's 6'9". He's got a great NBA body and length and size and, strong frame. He can handle. He's fluid off the dribble. He's just not good at basketball right now. That's the thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's jarring to go into that level. It can be jarring to go into a certain level of like organized basketball.
After skipping the year, like Tate said, right?
Yeah. And I think, this term has kind of become popular in like draft circles, draft discussion circles in the past couple of years, which is this idea of pre-drafting, which is taking guys before they show you their sort of like their resume, their full resume. And you'll see this just with a lot of these weird year guys, these like freshman guys that just didn't have great years, and then you draft them and you get them in there. You bet on the talent. You were talking about the Warriors. Honestly, feel like the Lakers have kind of taken that strategy and like free
Max
agency
Christie,
and stuff. They were just like, we're going to go and just accrue these like top 100 RSCI guys. But I think Gigi, if you're going to take a pre-draft, I mean, he's somebody that would definitely be worth taking a swing on.
And he passes the airport test. Like, if we all walked in a room and you saw a bunch of NBA prospects, you're like, who's that guy? It's Gigi Jackson.
I think the Nets, with their back-to-back picks in the first round, like, they're the type of team that's perfect to me, or like the Utah Jazz, they have two firsts. These teams with multiple firsts, why not take a big swing with him? Because with him, we saw the flashes in high school. He didn't do well at South Carolina. It's a difficult situation, up and down year. He's on Instagram Live blaming coaches for not getting touches. There's some flags there that NBA teams are going to have to take a look at through their interview process and say, hey, is this actually somebody that we do want to gamble on? Is this a person, is this somebody that was worth it for us? But if you have two firsts, like you said, Tate.
If like the Magic decide to trade back, something like that. Yeah.
Like why not? Who comes to mind to you, Kyle, as home run swings in this year's class?
It's a similar thing. Like we were talking about, the weird year is kind of the branding that I've just been putting on it lately. And I feel like both of the Thompson twins are kind of lurking in that range where you'll hear people talking. The shooting is obviously the big question. Both of these guys are. You're going to have to either rebuild or completely reshape their mechanics, just figure out how to give the pluses. And they're both going to be elite athletes. I've talked about how Amen next year might be the best perimeter athlete in the league from day one. He's that type of stratospheric athletic talent, and he can get into the paint and give you playmaking. I just think that if you looked at the board and you said who could like ascend up this board 5 years from now, and we just kind of overlooked their gifts, I feel like Amen has some of that, but there's a lot of guys in this draft like this. Like Dariq Whitehead had a weird year. Nick Smith had a weird year at Arkansas. There are a few different places. If you have the picks and you have the stomach for it, you could have a bet that could pay out big with talent.
With Amen and Oscar Thompson, like you mentioned, their jumpers, that those need work. They've been hard at work. Like they did revise their mechanics over the season with the OTE, and yet their numbers are still underwhelming. Let's say they are never, 38, 37, 39, 40%, whatever it might be, three-point shooters. And they're always going to be guys who hover between 26%, maybe a career high 32%. Do they still have superstar level potential with all the other qualities that they have, Kyle? Or do they need that jumper to be better in order to reach that level?
I think it's just got to get to the point where it's passable because I think if you bet on like how long their athleticism is going to be
that a passable number? Like 31, 32%?
31, 32 would be. I'm raising my hands to the
Right.
Lord. That
Like
would be
we won.
like, yeah, we did it.
So
we
it's
did
more
it.
like 25% is where you're a little.
You can't keep him out there. I mean, it's got to be like Tybal level. Like it's got to be like you got to be able to stay on the floor. And if he can stay on an NBA floor, I think these guys can. Yeah.
But even then, Tybal was losing minutes in the Sixers rotation.
It's true. Blazers fans love him, though.
They do. They actually love him. He also started shooting threes suddenly well all of a sudden.
He also just seems like a great locker room guy. As soon as he got to Portland, he's like on the plane. He's like listening to Dame Lillard rap. You know what I mean? If the Thompson twins are good teammates, that'll also help string it out. Yeah.
A lot of good food out in Portland. I think that would inspire anybody to shoot better, honestly.
I've never been out there.
You should. You'd love it.
I'd love to visit someday. Maybe. We'll see.
Portland Tourism by FanDuel. Yeah.
Cam Whitmore is the guy who comes to mind to me as one of the home run swings this year. He's 6'6", 235 pounds. He just jumps out of the gym. One of those types of athletes. We saw him at P3 just breaking, able to exceed the high jump. He is an amazing athlete. He explodes at the rim. The question with him is very similar to the Thompson twins. What level does his jump shot reach? He's been a below average shooter throughout, including in high school and his freshman year at Villanova. But the flashes of handle with his size and strength, I feel like he's somebody that at least you want to bet on. The floor for him is like, okay, he's going to be a good defensive player, versatile. He's going to be a guy who can attack closeouts, who can be used as like a screener type in an offense where you can play inverted styles. You can plug him into a Bruce Brown-esque role. I think he's at least going to be a competent shooter. But the question with him is, does he become a knockdown guy or a very good shooter? And if that happens, that's where suddenly that combination of physical strengths with fluid handling ability could manifest into a potential superstar level player.
Yeah, and I feel like Cam Whitmore is my number one guy that I feel as the draft gets closer and closer, we're going to see his name kind of climbing, where we get
You can already feel it. It's happening.
4 or 5, right? Even the Pistons at 5 feels like a Cam Whitmore type team. So I just feel like his name, and maybe there's some, Portland floats out there. We like Cam Whitmore at 3 or whatever it may be. I think he's that type of player, that type of prospect. And I think he has the right people around him in that Villanova circle. So I really like Cam Whitmore. I think there's a lot of upside there.
I mean, he's going to be a top guy in the draft. So, I mean, there's probably a floor with him.
There's been some very weird years for a guy, Emoni Bates, but Emoni Bates is someone that we all remember the cover, the next LeBron, right? I mean, there was a lot of pressure put on him. He goes to Memphis. Jalen Duren ended up being the best prospect on that team, and Penny and him kind of butted heads more than a few times. He ends up transferring back home. He has a solid year, has some good games. He still has that firepower to just go off for 30 points. I don't like his ability to get separation. I think that's still a question. He also physically doesn't really stand out. I think a lot of people projected him to be physically more imposing than he is. But I still think when you have a guy like Emoni Bates and you have a second-round pick or, maybe late first round, you take a flyer on a guy and say, who knows, maybe he can be what he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Do you have any belief in him?
No, I don't. I mean, at this point, I just kind of feel like he's like a 6'7", 6'8" Bones Highland.
Bones Highland's a good comp. I'll
put it this way. I'm skeptical. I worry about, and this is the thing we go through with guys like GG, we go through with guys like Emoni, is like the more that they kind of gravitate towards these situations that don't have total accountability, it tends to not go well, and you just pray that once they get into a situation where they are held accountable, they change kind of the way they play. Shane Sharp was a case of that happening this past year. Michael Porter Jr., an example of a guy who I said he should just be on his knees thanking the Lord every day that he met Nikola Jokic and ended up with him, because otherwise I don't know what would have happened to his play style. So it's different for every player. I worry about Emoni Bates. I'm not feeling super confident about it.
We talked about it earlier in the year in the draft show, and I love to watch him play just because the way he just jacks shots up. He just does not care at all. NBA coaches are not going to feel the same way.
No.
And guys have not gotten drafted because they take shots away from other guys. And I feel like Emoni Bates, there's only so many FGAs that are available for a team. And when you know a guy is planning to take 20 shots and he also doesn't have the talent to
20
do that,
shots in 12 minutes.
Right. It's like, get this guy out of here, And I feel like that's the real red flag for Emoni Bates.
And that's where he's going to have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
If he does stay in this draft and he gets selected in the second round or he's an undrafted guy, I hope he goes to a situation like you're saying, Kyle, where they embrace him and say, hey, we want you to be you, but these are the things that you're going to have to do to earn minutes to succeed in the NBA and make tens of millions of dollars. This is what you got to do. Can you at least play some defense? Can you at least be willing to pass the ball? Can you at least just spot up from behind the arc and not pout if you don't get touches? If he does those things, I mean, we know Emoni can shoot it. He's got size. He's got skill. He's got intensity. Let's see how he can hone that in the NBA. He could very well end up the steal of the draft, but I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical, but I like Jerry West and the Clippers, you know what I mean? I like Pat Riley and the Heat. I think he needs kind of like an OG kind of culture team.
This is what I'm
put
saying.
Him in a good spot.
Accountability. There are guys like that who, like DeMarcus Cousins was a guy who had a bad reputation coming into college. And if there's certain guys that if they get into a situation they respect, they can change. I mean, I hope it happens for Emoni. Like you said, the shooting talent is there, like the creation ability. It's not just that also. He has a lot to expand, like in terms of his body and how he plays. And right now, I think he profiles as like your second unit guy who comes in and has a big appetite for scoring.
Big spark.
But I'm not going to lean on him heavily with whatever I'm trying to do in my attack.
Well, I'm rooting for Emoni Bates. I am. I want him to just flourish in the NBA. But we'll see what happens. Kyle, Tate, thank you for joining me.